This is Stefan.
This is Eric.
And welcome back to the latest episode of the GearLocker podcast. We use it, we abuse it, and now we get to talk about it. We're talking today with Travis Haley of Haley Strategic Partners. Eric, why don't you give everyone, as if they don't already know, just a quick blurb on Travis?
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. This is Eric, and this is you listen to the GearLocker.net podcast. And we're very lucky that we have Travis Haley. He's going to sit down with us for a couple minutes and talk about Haley Strategic Partners. And you may have noticed back in November of last year, he put out a video blog post about airsoft cross training. That got our interest piqued, and we reached out to him to see if he'd sit down with us, and he was more than gracious enough to do so. So we want to pick his brain for a little bit. Travis, welcome, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, welcome here, Travis.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
So I know, Travis, we're talking to you right now. You're out in California, actually, about to do some training, so it ties in really well with what we're going to talk about tonight. But let's just kick off with how you kind of started looking at airsoft as a training tool.
Well, I'm always looking for other means of training and trying to excel. Specifically in today's economy, it's tough for guys to get out to the range and go spend $100 or $300 or $500 on ammo to just have a day or two of training session. Now, of course, live fire is obviously very, very important, but we can't go spend $100 even a day to go out and do our live fire. So airsoft is a great alternative for guys that are in the real steel world, and of course, there's a lot of controversy with it, where you have those two different camps, as I like to call them. You have your airsofter camps, and then you got your real steel operator type camps, and there always seems to be this rift between the two, and I don't think there needs to be, and that's why I wanted to do that blog, to show people that anything can be used as a tool if it's used properly to excel yourself, and that's one of the reasons why I do incorporate airsoft into my training for certain aspects of what I do. So about 2 years ago, when guns started really getting good, or when I started noticing them, because again, I'm not 100% into the airsoft world where I know every single thing about it. I've got guys that work for me that do that, but I do know what works. I do know what companies I like to use and incorporate into training for weapons manipulation, or just going through the movements, the efficiencies, and I like to tell people that, hey, if you're uncomfortable using a real steel gun around certain things, objects, vehicles, going in the shoot house or whatever, then supplement with airsoft. And of course, as the airsoft community knows, the force on force is a great option for trying to inoculate distress or incorporating a little bit of stress into your training. So, and real steel guys need that. They need to transfer that over and get shot at and get hit with pellets, because they do tell you that, hey, there's something wrong here. So we can learn from that if we know how to learn from it and use it correctly, as I said earlier. Kind of an immediate feedback option. That's something obviously you can't safely do with live steel. Absolutely. I wish we could. I mean, it'd be great to just have a body range. You could just shoot them all day long, but we can't, So the next best thing is, hey, not killing people, but getting as close as we can.
You mentioned you're in California, and I think they've got some interesting regulations surrounding AR-15s, and I think using 10-round magazines, and I think the mag has to be pinned to the lower receiver. Do you see incorporating those airsoft training into a class like this, where like mag changes, something you might not be able to do as rapidly as if you were doing the class somewhere else? So using the airsoft gun to work on mag changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do anything manipulation-wise that I can simulate with airsoft that I can actually do with a real steel and vice versa, back and forth. I'm going to do that because I don't need bullets to do manipulations. And a lot of people think they have to go out to the range and put live rounds down range and to get the maximum benefit out of it. But and I think that's where the rift starts to come in between those two camps. But I'm talking about the efficiencies of movement, just the human body working on that, getting those constant repetitions down, good repetitions. Once you find that effective and efficient technique, you can practice with an airsoft gun. The mag still loads the same. I typically run guns that are very similar to real guns and set up exactly the same as my guns, or as much as that we can get them set up the same. And working through those motions, I'm not really concerned with my downrange, my POI. I'm concerned with what's happening at me, the human being. And I can always do thousands of repetitions with that airsoft gun and not spend any money, where I'd have to with a real gun and real ammo.
So what? A couple of weeks ago, we had Brandon Webb on, and his take on the whole airsoft thing was he sees it kind of building and expanding for law enforcement and military training. Is that something you think is going to become more prevalent as we move forward?
I think so. It's starting, to become used a lot more. I see a lot more law enforcement using airsoft. Military, on the other hand, very few units have I ever seen using airsoft because, of course, they have, the simunitions or UTM capabilities. So I think you're not gonna see that ever go away. That's pretty set in stone there. But I think a lot of guys outside, stepping outside the military doors and going and doing airsoft on their own, and because a lot of guys are finding that you can go to an airsoft match and work on stress inoculation, and I'll do that. I'll go to a range or go do a match with some of my instructors or my friends or something, and just focus on one thing during that half an hour, match or tournament, if you will. And that one thing may be, okay, when I start engaging, what are my stress levels? I'll be monitoring biofeedback. So I dive in a little bit deeper on the physiological side as I use these tools, not just go out and have some fun and throw plastic downrange. So you can dive into the science and incorporate that airsoft with the science and really get something out of it. So that's kind of how we incorporate, like this class we're doing here in California. On our scenario days, we're actually going to have a little bit of airsoft with some simunitions incorporated into the training to place an instructor or curriculum-induced stress, not wanting to get hit, close quarters combat type of things, where we want to see the human reaction. We want to see people be able to problem solve under higher levels of stress, and think about it, and then stop and get biofeedback and go, hey, here's what's going on. Do you feel that? What's your heart rate doing right now? Checking their eyes, dilation. going into all the physiological aspects of what are happening under critical stress, and then trying it again and then fixing it. So that's something that people need to keep in mind if they want to go out and do force on force. You can go out and shoot people all day long. I've been in multiple combat tours, and there's times where I've been in actual gunfights that we never processed. We never went back and sat down and debriefed and go, man, what was our bodies doing? What did my eyes do under stress? Did I actually see my dots? Did I actually feel trigger control? Was I, concentrating on what I needed to do? No, because the stress was so bad. So we can take and go into training and put ourselves in those scenarios and stop, go and rewind and break it down nanosecond by nanosecond of what our bodies did and how we thought our way through and how we problem solve through that. And that's what it's really truly about. And that's how we excel. I don't care how good you shoot, I don't care how fast you are, how accurate you are. I care how you react under stress. And that's where, again, that tool of airsoft or simunitions or UTM, that simulated stressors can be incorporated into daily training to help you increase your survivability.
That's awesome. That's stuff I haven't thought about enough myself. I know I need to start doing more of that.
Because, you go out and you shoot somebody and they're like, oh my God, you got me. And then it's like, okay, stop. Now you bring in science. And people go, wow. And you, like you just said, you don't really typically think about that. Well, if we can get people to start thinking about that, I think you're going to see a change. And that's what my goal is. And that's why I released that blog to stop the rift, stop the BS, back and forth between, oh, you guys are just a bunch of effing gamers and you don't know anything about our sport. And you don't know anything about our reality. You know what? Let's learn from each other. Look at the competitive shooting sports versus the military, where back in the 70s, when a lot of the competitive shooting organizations started, guess what they did? They went to the military and they said, how do you guys shoot? How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you clear rooms? We want to build scenarios and make competitions for responsible armed citizens. And then guess what happened 10, 15, 20 years? And then look at today, later, we have the competitive side has smoked the military. There's kids out there that are 13, 14 years old that'll smoke some of the top tier 1 operators in the U.S. military. And, of course, those U.S. military guys don't want to hear that, but I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely true because these people are thinking outside the box. And so that's why I started, a training company, because I had the time and the luxury and resources and have committed my life to finding these new methodologies, these new platforms to deliver, the right kind of training. and get outside those institutional inertias. And I think that's where I looked into all these different communities. What can the airsoft community give us? What can the paintball community give us? What can the extreme sports communities give us? How can we incorporate those small things into our lives to make us better tacticians as real steel shooters? And that's where it comes back to, is a lot of about the human. It's about you. It's about how you operate it. Not how fancy your gun is, how expensive, the whole package is, how straight your Mitch helmet is on your head, but how you problem solve. And that's why I always say you need a thinker before a shooter, because I can always teach you to shoot, but I can't make you a good thinker.
That's a lot of good information. I'm sure a lot are listening and taking notes. You mentioned earlier when you do incorporate airsoft into your training, do you have any recommendations, or what do you like to use when you do incorporate it?
As far as the actual AEGs, gas blowbacks, all that stuff.
I'm a big Tokyo Marine fan. I mean, I work well with them. I hope to see something more with them in the future, without saying too much. But the the gas blowback, for me, it's sometimes difficult living at 6,500 feet MSL, mean sea level, which I have problems running through gas a lot faster than if I was at sea level. I tend to break gas blowback guns more than some of my other ones as well. So
we have a lot of difficulty here in the Northeast because of there's only about 3 months or so that you can use it effectively, and then the cold starts to wear on it.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit more efficient for me personally to use the AEGs and keep the electric and running the Tokyo Marines. It just seems to really work out well for me.
Are you doing anything with electric blowbacks or just standard AEGs right now, or
just standard AEGs right now? Hadn't played with the electric blowbacks. I know some of my staff. I got Ray Samcrow on my staff. He's kind of my subject matter expert when I need help for that world, and he's constantly teaching me on a daily basis. So it's great to have him. And but I know he's played with a lot of stuff, and that's one of the reasons he's on board my teams to help me research and develop new things based into that community. So we're learning, we're growing on it, and we're trying to find the next best thing. So we'll keep you guys posted if we find anything new.
Cool. I know a company, KWA. I think they're coming out with an electric blowback AEG. I think next year or late this year. So that might be something that you might see on the horizon pretty soon. That kind of incorporates the gas blowback recoil, but still running off a battery.
Okay, well, cool.
And it incorporates lockback and all that good stuff that you don't normally get when you run out of a mag on an AEG. So cool. So how as far as you've talked a little bit about how you're using the AEG. Is it mostly on drills and stress related? Are there any specific drills that you want to maybe tip us off to? Hey guys, if you do just these 2 or 3 things, you're going to see such an improvement in your real steel shooting? Or
here's the number one thing, and I want the airsoft community to understand, as well as the real steel community, that this goes equal for both. Safety is obviously is paramount, and a lot of guys go, oh yeah, we know safety. Well, if you're a safer shooter, you're going to be a better shooter right off the bat. We have like what we call the life safety rules. They follow you everywhere you go. So a lot of guys I see are very negligent with airsoft guns. When they put the real steel down, they go pick up the airsoft and they really don't truly treat it like a real weapon. Well, they need to do that. They need to, because that's consistency and repetition of every single thing you do in life, not just with a gun, but everything you do, will create that long-term potentiation of learning, where your mindset will naturally and subconsciously go into a safe action mode, where a lot of people neglect that. And so that's the first thing that I always tell people is, when you pick it up, pretend it's real, because when you go back to that real steel gun, you'll carry over bad habits if you have bad habits with airsoft. And I know a lot of guys that come to my training classes, like out here in California, we got a lot of airsofters out here. Matter of fact, the class I'm doing right now, with extreme airsoft guys out of California, they run the range, and great shooters, man. You'll see, but sometimes some of them will lose track of that safety. You know what I mean? Because they're so used to just going out and aiming at other people. They're used to being in that gunfight, and they don't think about it when they carry over to that real steel. So they're great shooters. They look really good. They're really familiar with the platform. They're some of the better shooters, but then the safety kind of goes away. And so therefore they're really at the bottom of the barrel. They're not at the top of the barrel. So if we can just flip-flop that, make them safer, they're going to become better shooters and better tacticians. Because even in the most extreme environments, you're going to see the guys, like watch the tier 1 guys running through buildings doing dynamic assault. You'll see them clearing muzzles around other guys subconsciously. They don't even know they're doing it because they've had thousands and thousands of repetitions in their life. So that's why I'm really kicking the dead horse here on the safety aspects.
You're absolutely right. Having come at airsoft from the real steel world, it is disturbing still to be in a setup area, and there's just these kids sweeping barrels left and right that it's got to be addressed. People have to take it more seriously. And even with the BB, it's still a danger,
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like eels, you can poke your eye out, right? But
and you can see it. You've seen in safe areas where someone flips something they thought was onto safe onto full auto and empties out a couple hundred BBs against the wall or at a group of people who don't have eye protection. It can get ugly fast.
Well, it's the thing that when you stop and think about safety, again, a lot of people don't. They're just like, yeah, whatever. It truly changes your mindset, because I think if you don't and you're constantly out on the airsoft field and then you go over and shoot real steel every once in a while, you've built a false confidence. And that's what I meant by that guy that's really good shooters. I mean, the dude's smoking reloads. He's smoking malfunction drills. He's dropping into positions quick. He's doing everything he needs to do on the weapons manipulation side. But then he stands up and he sweeps the line. Or he turns around and he messes with his gun. Or he's zeroing his live gun and he's pointing it down range when he shouldn't be. And there's people still checking their targets. It's like, okay, guy, you had that false confidence of safety. Now, I will say there are certainly times to aim a weapon at people. But that's in a high-stress situation. I will tell you that coming from a special operations background, multiple combat actions and direct action missions, do we do multiple entry points on multiple windows and doors and 5 cell teams coming into one small building, and do we all meet in the middle in the hallway? What do you think we're doing? We're snapping a gun on each other, but we're thinking, oh, that's my guy looking for work, looking for the next guy. Oh, that's my guy looking for work. But did the muzzle sweep them? Yes. But that's because guys are working together for 12 months at a time, shooting 80,000 rounds in just an 8-week shooting package before they're even allowed to step into the CQB realm, before they can start doing that, because we need to have those problem solvers and thinkers first. But a lot of guys think, I can take a 2 or 3 day weapons manipulation course and go out and do that CQB stuff. And I think that's where you lose control of the guys that are doing the airsoft side of the house. They have absolutely no concept of that. And so that's why we're trying to bring those two worlds together to make them understand each other instead of tear each other apart. Because, again, we can do more together than we can separate, because we can learn from each other.
That's a great message, and it's something that Stefan and I try to preach as often as possible through the podcast and through the GearLocker pages. Especially with younger people getting into the airsoft sport, you want to start them off with good habits and not try to break bad habits.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I wish it would. And if those guys, those younger kids specifically, because a lot of them I've met. I mean, I do a lot with recruiting agencies now, with Marine Corps recruiters and Army recruiters. And I see a lot of these delayed entry program guys that have enlisted in the military that are in high school, that are getting ready to go off and serve their country. They're avid airsofters. I mean, they love going out and doing that stuff, and they know the gear better than I do. And that's the generation I want to train up, but I don't want them to go into the Marine Corps with unsafe habits and then get themselves in trouble, even though they're really good shooters. So I need them to switch their mindset now. And that's a really good message to send, because I'd rather have that kid that's doing that, but if he's trained correctly and has the right mindset, and that's why I wish the military would sponsor events and companies that teach kids to do that kind of stuff, instead of putting freaking Marine Corps emblems on NASCARs. The last one I want is redneck gear kid.
They put them on Crossman airsoft guns now, so that solves everything right there.
Yeah.
No, that's actually a great idea. I would love to see that sort of sponsorship going on, because the kids who are getting into it today, I think Brandon Webb said it well. Those are your future warfighters. They're
right.
The ones
It's the Xbox generation. Okay,
right,
and that's okay. That's fine. I mean, I watch my 7-year-old play Xbox better than I can, and I imagine, like, God, I wish I remember back in my Atari days when I had a stick and a button and I still couldn't figure the shit out. And this kid's working, this kid's working an iPad better than I can. But those kids are the future, and they need to be trained correctly instead of falling into this false confidence again. Like I was saying earlier, they need to think about safety. They need to think about being a thinker first. And I think it's going to help the future of both communities, because those airsoft kids will go into the military, and then they become that real steel, life committed person that's putting foot to ass for their country, or they're a law enforcement guy. And instead of carrying bad habits into that world, which if you have enough people carry bad habits in, it changes everything. It changes the standards. It lowers the quality. And that's why I try to tap into the younger communities a little bit more.
While we're on the topic of equipment, what other types of equipment do you like using when you're training? Any recommendations or anything you're more partial to?
I switch back and forth. I mean, it depends what I'm doing. I obviously live a life of a lot of different styles, I guess, whether, I'm doing concealed carry or I'm doing, operational type stuff. So I'll train in all those different types of environments. So that gear might change. I may be running concealment stuff one day and just practicing on that. And again, it's hard for me to get out to that range, because my range is 20 minutes away. So I got to drive there. I got to load the car with targets and stands and all that stuff and gear and ammo, go out and buy ammo, whatever the case may be. It takes 4 hours out of my day instead of just going, you know what? I got 10 minutes to spare. I'm going to grab my belt on. Whether it's my open carry rig, like my high-speed gear stuff that we use with the tacos, so I can switch through multiple weapon systems. Maybe I'm running a SCAR heavy 1 second, and so I can switch back and forth with my SCAR heavy airsoft and do some drills with it. And then I can take my 5.56, throw the mags back in the same pouch and run some 5.56 drills, put that down, and then throw on the handgun. So I like to have a multi-mission capability. So that's why I always go back to the high-speed gear stuff. Great. I know a lot of guys run that because they switch, especially in the airsoft communities, they switch back and forth between platforms. So that's something I look at. And if I'm running armor, I'll throw on the armor. If I'm running helmets and night vision, like I'm going to be doing this course here, I'll take a couple, minutes or half an hour if I have the time and throw all that gear on and train around that, because a lot of people just train with the belt on and then they go through full gear on and they're screwing up their manipulations because the ergonomics change. The angles of their hands grab gear differently because they've got more layers on. So I always just tell people it goes back to the old school saying of, hey, train how you fight.
Exactly, and it's just I'm a big fan of their tacos and their short grip padded belt. Gene makes some really great stuff, and it seems to be bulletproof. Can't destroy it yet.
I'll tell you, I've known Gene for Gene. A lot of people don't know this about Gene, but he lives right outside the back gate of Camp Lejeune, and he used to be an old saddle maker, dabbled in leathers, and of course, all of us Force Recon guys used to beat on his back door and say, "Gene, open up, man, help us rig this gear up, sew this, sew that," and then we talked him into getting into the tactical nylon world, and he never looked back from there. So I've known Gene since the very first days of business when I was still kicking doors, and I still have gear that is sitting on my shelves that he made me over 15 years ago, and it hasn't busted a stitch yet. So it's pretty impressive stuff.
Wow. And we all thank you for getting him into it, because he makes great gear.
Well, he's a true American. He's a good guy.
Definitely, and he'll sit and answer any question you have, too, which is really cool. Great customer service from him.
Absolutely.
Good guy. So as people are listening to this, they're going, I want to incorporate airsoft into my real steel training. Do you have any recommendations or any tips that people can take away from this if they want to do that?
Well, I'd say number one, safety. And number two, consistency. Consistency is everything that we do in shooting comes from consistency. If you want to build that long-term repetition and build that long-term, where you pick it up subconsciously is the goal and work through, you've got to maintain the same, because I will work with people and we'll get them where they're running really smooth, and then I'll walk away, and next thing you know, their consistency starts falling apart. So now if you did 1,000 different repetitions, different types of repetitions, you just did 1,000 wasted repetitions. So I like people to think about that. And of course, that goes back and forth. So when you put down the real steel gun and pick up the airsoft, use the same consistency. Don't get carried away. I see a lot of guys get carried away with the airsoft stuff, and they start losing focus, and they start doing things with an airsoft gun that they would not do with a live fire gun. And I think that's where you got to have that your own reins on, where you can pull yourself back and go, okay, am I being unrealistic here? Because I can take my airsoft gun and do a lot of things around my vehicle that I wouldn't do with my live fire gun. So that's where the consistency comes into safety and reality. So again, the safety and consistency and training to reality as much as possible. And take the time. If a lot of people are like, I'm not buying an airsoft gun, it's expensive. Well, do the math. You can go out and you know what I mean? You go out and buy a $400 or $500 and don't buy it cheap, or you're going to buy it twice with airsoft. We all know that.
Right.
So buy quality stuff. That's why I run Tokyo Maries and good branded airsoft guns and equipment. That way they last. They're always going to work for me, and I'm going to pay a lot less in the long run. You can go out and spend $150 on 300 rounds, depending on, again, what kind of ammo you're buying. It could be more, it could be less, and get to the range once a month and do 10 airsoft sessions in your office or in your house, your garage for 5-10 minutes. You're going to see so much more benefit than if you only went out to the range 5 times a month and only shot 100 to 200 rounds. So again, it's not about actually putting a bullet down range. Yes, we do need to confirm points of impact and confirm our zeros and make sure that we're managing recoil the way we need to, because you don't get that with airsoft. You can certainly mimic the stance, but you can't manage recoil. So we do have to trade back and forth. That's why I will not do a complete airsoft class. I will do, or a simunitions or UTM class. I will alternate back and forth at the end of every day to make sure everybody's still in a reality check, so they don't lose control of themselves and lose control of the safety and consistency. So those are a couple of things that I would definitely point out there for people.
And I like how you point out, it's worth spending the $400 or $500 on a good airsoft gun. In my mind, it's going to save you wear and tear on your much more expensive real steel version. Not to mention, you're not gonna cry as bad when you drop a $500 KWA AEG as you will when you drop a $2,500 AR or something that you put tons of time and money into.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, Travis, you've already answered. We had a list of questions, and you've answered all of them without us even asking half of them. And I've just enjoyed just sitting here listening as you've gone on. You've brought up some great points. Is there anything else you want to just throw out before we say goodbye and thank you for your interview?
No, not really, guys. I mean, I really appreciate you having me on the podcast, and keep thinking out there. Stay safe. Number one, be consistent in your training, and hopefully see you out there in real classes and airsoft.
and so, folks want to take classes. Where should they be going and looking?
They can check out HaleyStrategic.com. We've got a training page on there on our schedule. You can actually click on the individual classes, and you'll see the breakdowns of what each class is. We do a lot of basic weapons manipulation guys. So guys that are doing airsoft that are trying to carry over into the real steel community, they can take a basic weapons manipulation class and start gearing themselves up and helping them on both sides of the house there. But and then they, of course, keep track of our blog on the website. We always try to update as many new videos as possible with techniques. We love to do knowledge transfer. As much free stuff as I can give out, I'm going to try to do that to help excel the community in my spare time. So keep looking in both places, the training and the blog site, for new releases, new products and stuff that we got coming out. And it's going to be a good year this year.
And before we sign off, I know when we were talking a while ago, you said that it's tough to be able to do classes up here in the Northeast and kind of on the Eastern Seaboard. So if anyone out there is willing to host, we would love to see, we'd love to get you out in our neck of the woods to play a little bit too.
Yeah, it's always good to have a good host. We do have a great network of hosts now that we utilize around the country. The Northeast is always tough for any training agency. There's always different laws, but there are some states up there that are really great for training. Pennsylvania. I think you're in New Hampshire, right? Isn't New Hampshire pretty good? We just need somebody that can actually take the responsibilities of a host and coordinate it and help push the word out and actually fill a course, because we do like to fill our courses because our goal is to train people. I mean, Haley Strategic's core is number one, helping people. That's what we do. Everything else comes second. So the more people we can get in a class and take that time, because I'd love to be everywhere at one time, but I can't, unfortunately. Right. Same with my guys with me. It's impossible for us. So, we need that person to help take control of that and run it. And if they have any questions, they can possibly contact other hosts that are on our website on the training page, or send us an email to info@haleystrategics.com, and we can answer the questions and send them our prerequisites to see if guys want to get that going up there, because we'd love to come up to the Northeast and train.
We'll try to get the word out and see what we can do for you.
All right, guys. Well, hey,
thanks a lot for your time, Travis. We really enjoyed talking to you tonight.
You bet. Take care, guys.
Take care. And this is Eric.
And this is Stefan.
And we're closing the door on another episode of the GearLocker.net's podcast. Hope to see you next time.